Cascade Hoops Talk, Billy D here. Join us on Twitter, Cascade Hoops Talk. Join us on YouTube as well if you prefer to get your audio over there in our YouTube channel. Also, check out the daily newspaper, CascadeHoopsTalk.com, where once the season starts, we'll have all the scores and NAI basketball stories throughout the season. Hey, today we're thrilled to have Coach Kyle Blankenship. He's the head coach, LSU Shreveport Pilots. Coach Blankenship was a standout high school player at C.E. Byrd High School. He was all-city, all-state performer. Coach Blankenship played 3 years at the University of Tulsa. He was a captain. His team made the NCAAs 2 of the 3 years he played there. And then he transferred to LSU Shreveport in his final season, and he led the Pilots to a number 1 ranking as he finished his career at LSUS as the school's single-season assist leader with 199, single-game assist record holder at 14, and he led the nation in assist-to-turnover ratio. Last season, Coach Blankenship led the Pilots to 29-3, Red River Athletic Conference regular season and tournament champions, number 3 in the nation, and a number 1 seed in the national tournament. Coach Blankenship has earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from the University of Tulsa. Welcome, Coach. I really appreciate you taking the time and being on.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and glad to join you this afternoon.
You know, Coach, could you talk about, you went to C.E. Byrd High School, you were all-city, all-state, and then you made a decision to go to University of Tulsa, NC2A Division I school. You were captain over there. You made the NC2As 2 out of the 3 years. Can you talk about that decision to go to Tulsa right out of high school?
Yeah, growing up playing ball in Shreveport, Louisiana, I was part of a proud program that was one of the top programs in the state when I went there as a freshman, and really played on some really good teams. And the city of Shreveport at that time was producing a lot of Division I talent. And, Stromile Swift was a number 2 draft pick in the NBA, and guys like him and several others that went on to play Division I basketball. Those are the guys that I was fortunate to be able to compete against in high school. So it prepared me for the opportunity to be able to play college basketball. And, I had a number of offers coming out of high school at the Division I level. A lot of them are really far away from home, most of them up in the Northeast. And, I really had my eyes set on trying to go somewhere in Oklahoma. That's where all my family's from. I grew up a big Oklahoma Sooner fan, big fan of Kelvin Sampson. And I grew up going to his camps when I was younger and all that, and kind of had my heart set on maybe walking on there. And they eventually offered me a walk-on spot at OU, but at the time, my cousin was the quarterback at the University of Tulsa, and his younger brother, who's my age, had committed to go play football there as well. And so no one having them there, and then all of my entire family on my mom's side and my dad's side, they were there in Tulsa. It kind of presented itself where I started looking into that school and kind of had decided that if an opportunity was there, I'd walk on. And fortunately, at the end of the spring, a scholarship opened up, and they gave me one, and I knew what I was getting into. Tulsa had come off an Elite Eight appearance under Bill Self just 2 years before that. They won the NIT my senior year of high school, and they were one of the winningest programs in the country at the NCAA level. And so, I was excited to have that opportunity to go there. And my first couple of years, I didn't play a whole lot, and I knew that, especially with the talent that we had. And we went to 2 NCAA tournaments, and we won first-round games in both of those years, which was an incredible experience. My first year, we beat Dwayne Wade and Marquette. Wow. That was pretty cool to be sitting right there and watch that. And then the next year, we went up and beat Dayton, who were the Atlantic 10 champions, and we beat them in the first round. I think we were a 12 and a 13 seed both of those years.
My goodness.
So they were considered upsets, but lost on a heartbreaker to go to the Sweet 16. I think Wisconsin, who was the Big Ten champs that year, hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to beat us. And so, moving on from there, my next year, I was kind of given an opportunity to play a little bit and was named team captain. And, just learned a lot from those previous years under those great teams. We didn't have as much success as a team those following couple of years, but it's an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything. I really enjoyed my time at Tulsa. I ended up getting my degree from the University of Tulsa, and being there and being around family that whole entire time and having my cousins on the football team and and my uncle was a longtime coach there in the city of Tulsa, and my grandparents and everything. It's just something I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I'm really curious about a couple things. Maybe you kind of blend them together. I mean, one, what was it like to play in that NC2A Division I atmosphere? That had to have been amazing.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've been a part of the NAI National Tournament for about 12 or 13 years now, and that tournament is as good as any at the NAI Division I level. But there's just the mystique about the NCAA when you walk on the blue carpet back to the locker room and you walk out. I think the first year we played Marquette, we played in the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis. And this is before they really expanded it out to the 75 and 80,000 seats. But we walked out there, and it's cut in half, and it's still 40-something thousand people. And really in the second round, we played Kentucky. That's who knocked us out my freshman year, and I can't even put it into words walking out into a stadium. Tulsa is one of the smallest Division I schools. They are the smallest Division I football playing school in the country. And going out there, and there was 25 or 30,000 Kentucky fans. And, it's everything that you see on TV. It's March Madness. And unfortunately, my sophomore year, I was on the wrong end of it, watching Wisconsin come back from 13 down with about 3.5 minutes to play, and then hitting that shot in the corner where they were on the joyous side, and we were hanging our heads and crying, and it's just it's a pretty awesome experience. It's one that I'm blessed that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, and very thankful that I had that opportunity.
You still wake up at night and think about that three-pointer?
There's several throughout my career that I think about. I think about that one. Makes me sick to my stomach. My first year as the head coach at LSUS in the national semifinals against Georgetown, they hit about a 25 to 30-footer at the buzzer to beat us, keep us out of the championship game. And there's many more, but those two right there at the top of the list that still, make my stomach turn when I think about it.
Yeah, those stings never go away, do they?
No, sir, they don't.
So you played at Tulsa. You just talked about it. It was an amazing atmosphere. You had some success there as a player, and the program had success. And then you decided to, how did you end up over at Shreveport to play your final year of basketball?
So I pretty much grew up in Shreveport after we moved down here from Oklahoma. And my first year at Byrd, we had a new coach, and his name was Chad McDowell. And he coached me all 4 years in high school at Byrd. And so then when I went off to Tulsa, Chad moved to another high school here in town, his alma mater, and had great success. And then LSUS started the program in 2003. And they named Chad McDowell the head coach. This was his alma mater. This is where he had played. And the AD at the time was his old AD in high school. So there was kind of that connection. And the first year we talked a little bit, but I wasn't ready to leave Tulsa. And I knew I was on a path to graduate, and we were coming off some really good seasons. But following it ended up being my fourth year at Tulsa because I had a redshirt season mixed in there. Our coach resigned. And so when that happened, everybody thought I was done at Tulsa because they didn't know I'd gotten a medical redshirt, which ended up being my second year there. Mm-hmm. And so I started kind of spinning the wheels a little bit and started talking to Coach McDowell and was looking into the opportunities of, what I would need to do to potentially play a fifth year and come down and transfer. And, one thing led to another. And if there was anybody that I was going to play for in my final year, I wanted to be somebody that I was familiar with. And at Tulsa, we were going to go through a whole new coach, a whole new system. And I just wasn't sure that that's what I wanted. And I knew that Coach McDowell and LSUS were coming off an NAI tournament appearance in just their second year of existence. And they had a lot of guys back, and they had some guys that I'd played against in high school. And I just was thrilled about the opportunity about having the chance to come home. And my parents were still here at the time. And when I did that, I started talking to some guys at the Division I level that played with me in high school at Byrd and against me. And we all just started talking about, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to go home and win a national championship. And so we did that, and it was probably the most fun year that I ever had. I mean, all those years that we went to the NCAA tournaments and the big arenas and all the fanfare that you have at the Division I level, I don't think I had more fun than I did at LSUS that 1 year. We were 28-3 in the regular season, won the regular season championship. We were number one ranked in the country, first time for any program at LSUS to be rated number one. And we won our conference tournament championship. And, for us, I I just tell it like it is. We went out to the national tournament, and I had no idea. It's my first time that I'd ever been there. We were a number 2 seed, and there were several of us, especially the Division I transfers. We thought it was going to be easy. We thought we'd cakewalk through the first round and kind of go from there and pick it up, and we just weren't ready to play. And we came out, and the team that we were playing, I mean, as I know now that I've coached in it and been it, everybody out there can win. And, when it's 32 teams now going to 64, they all can win. And we just got upset in that first round, but still looking back on that, the year that I had here, I mean, it's led to me being where I am today, and I'm very grateful for it.
Kyle, I can just hear it, and I'm sure the listeners can hear it in your voice. I mean, that was a very fond experience. I mean, even though you had the tough loss in Kansas City, what a great experience to come home for that final season.
Oh, absolutely. Again, it's something I wouldn't trade. Everybody's got a unique path in life, and a lot of times in sports, you see people do different things. But my whole career, I've gotten to be around family, even in coaching. And as you'll find out, and I don't know if we'll ever touch on it throughout this deal, we might a little bit, but to me, family is the most important thing. I love my family more than anything, and I wouldn't trade the time that I've gotten to spend with them from being a little kid until my 37 years of age today. And so that's what was great, because when I was those first 4 years, I had my grandparents, and my sister was at Oklahoma State and whatnot, but my parents were having to travel back and forth every weekend to come and watch games. And then coming back home, not only have my parents here, but I have friends and families that I grew up around and that were able to watch me play since the age of 6. And so it was an incredible experience. And then on top of that, I got to play for Coach McDowell, who to this very day, I mean, he's more like one of my best friends now. We're 10 years separated in age, and kind of didn't know how to handle that throughout the high school, whether it was more like a big brother type deal or however it is. But right now, I mean, he's one of my best friends, my mentor, and having the opportunity to play for him and for this program was just an incredible experience. So,
Coach, you talked about one of your mentors. What led to you wanting to be a coach?
Well, a little background about the Blankenship family is I come from a family of coaches, and my uncle was a longtime coach in the state of Oklahoma, football, and all of them are really football coaches, except for my grandfather. He's a Hall of Fame, or was a Hall of Fame coach in the state of Oklahoma in basketball and baseball, and was a superintendent, athletic director of a small school in Spiro, Oklahoma. And his brother-in-laws, I think he had a couple of them. So my grandmother's, her brothers were coaches. And so it's kind of all I knew growing up was in this order. It was church, school, and ball. And you didn't have one without the other. And so, my dad, he went and played ball at Harvard. He was a starting quarterback at Harvard and played a little basketball there as well. And he ended up getting into the ministry. And so that was his form of coaching. And he always coached my youth teams growing up. But everybody else in my family, they were coaches. And so we kind of called it the family business. And so I knew at a young age that I wasn't going to play forever. And I just, really took to really studying the game. I would study all sports. I didn't know if I would end up being a football coach, basketball coach, whatever it was. But ultimately, basketball became my number one love. And so I knew at a young age that it's what I wanted to do, and I was going to have to work for it. And so I started working at a young age to really pick my coach's brains throughout the years in high school and then in college, and really trying to pay attention to the time they put into it and all the things behind the scenes that you have to do in order to be a great coach. And so that's kind of what led me into knowing that as soon as I finished playing, that's what I wanted to do.
So when you graduated, or you graduated from Tulsa, but you played your final year at LSUS, then you stuck around there and you assisted a couple of years. You went over to Lamar 1 or 2 years, and then you ended up at Rogers State before you finally came back to Shreveport as the head coach. I mean, can you talk about that journey? What did you learn? What things surprised you as you kind of cut your teeth as a coach?
Well, I mean, my coaching experience is all really at the small college and then 1 year of junior college sprinkled into it. And so my first year out, I actually, the way that I was hired here at LSUS, because at the time, we weren't greatly funded, and, there weren't full-time coaching positions. So I had to do part-time work as the sports information director. But I had some opportunities to go be a graduate assistant, and I wanted to jump right into coaching. Once I had done my years of schooling and finished that up, I wasn't really too fond or too excited about jumping right back into the classroom, whether it was a master's degree or whatever. And with Coach McDowell giving me the opportunity to stay around Shreveport and to coach in a championship program and to really learn under him as a coach previously as I had done as a player, was something that I wanted to just really jump on. And so I did that for a couple of years, and like I said, he's one of my mentors, and he finally told me, hey, Kyle, I know it's your goal one day to be a head coach, and if you want to be a head coach one day, whether it's here or somewhere else, I think you need to make some moves. I think you need to go get some experience in other places and not just have LSU Shreveport as the only school that you've worked at. And so at the time, one of my best friends growing up that I'd played ball together with and known since the age of 9, he had just gotten the head coaching job at Lamar State, Port Arthur, which was a newly NJCAA Division I program that had jumped into Region 14, which is one of the best junior college leagues in the nation. I mean, Jimmy Butler played at Tyler Junior College out of Region 14, and so when he had a spot for me to come down there again, like I said, I've always been around family. He's like family to me. And, I moved down there with him and did 1 year at the junior college level, and I really learned how to teach the game. Coach Cross, Matt Cross, was the head coach, and he had learned under some tremendous coaches throughout his career. And I got to see things from a different perspective and really got to work with guys that were fresh out of high school. Because at LSUS, we would get a lot of transfers and whatnot. And so being able to coach some 18 and 19-year-old kids and really being able to teach them the game and learn the fundamentals of the game, unlike I hadn't before, was a great experience for me. And we got to coach against some really great coaches in that league that are still coaching to this day, that are championship coaches, and watching them and their teams, has really propelled me in my coaching career. And from there, I was hired at Rogers State under a first-year head coach, Justin Barkley, who's an Eastern Oklahoma guy, and his family knew my family. And they had recruited some of our players at Lamar State, and he and I had worked camps. When I played at Tulsa, he had worked some of our summer camps. So there was a strong relationship there, and Rogers State is in Claremore, which is 30 miles outside of Tulsa, which is still where all my family was. And then my uncle had just become the head football coach at the University of Tulsa. And my dad retired and joined his staff there. So it all kind of worked out where, in a sense, I was going back to my home away from home. And 2 years at Rogers State, we were NAIA Division I at the time. We made 2 NAIA Division I national tournaments, and we made 2 Elite Eight appearances in both of those years. And so, again, Justin had played on the NCAA Division II national championship team. He had different philosophies and different mindsets and really taught me a lot of different things, especially on the defensive end, that I'd never – they'd never been, really emphasized at some other places that I'd been. And so was able to grow and learn there as well. And then, following those 2 years there, Coach McDowell down here at LSUS decided to move into an athletic director position and give up his coaching duties. And, I was on a list of candidates and through that process, I was eventually hired. I wasn't even his first choice, and he'll tell you that. We laugh about it now. It crushed me. He offered the job to somebody else first, and fortunately for me, they turned it down. And when he called me back and asked me if I was still interested, it was a no-brainer. And so that's what got me back here, and my first head coaching job, and I've been here ever since, and I'm still enjoying it as if it was the first day 8 years ago.
And as they say, the rest is history. You've had a great run at LSUS. I think every year except one, you've been over 20 wins, 27 your first year. The year you didn't have 20 wins, you had 18, 30 wins in 17, 18. Anyway, it's been a terrific run.
Yes, sir. We've been fortunate to have really good players. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I try to be the best coach I can, but part of that sometimes is just recruiting them and then getting out of the way and letting them go be the best players that they can be. And again, we've every single year, it's my goal to try to improve as a coach, try to find ways that we can be better as a team. And And a lot of times that's not so much necessarily on the floor. There's a lot of off the floor stuff that goes into it. And I'm big on team chemistry and guys enjoying being around each other every single day. We try to recruit a unique mix of guys that we can ultimately bring together to try to win a championship. And so, we've had a lot of fun here. We hope that we're going to be able to have fun again this year. I really love my team. I like the guys that we've got here. But, again, I attribute the success to not only our players that we have throughout those years, but the ones that came before them and the coaches that kind of laid the foundation for us to do what we're able to do.
So let's talk about last season. It was a great season for LSUS. You went 29-3. Coach, you were the Red River Athletic Conference regular season and tournament champions, number 3 in the nation, number 1 seed at the national tournament. Obviously, the tournament didn't happen, but, talk about that season last year. You really had a special group. You had 3 All-Americans.
Yeah, it was last year was one of those years that they don't come around very often. And like everybody else, we would have loved to see how it could have finished. But we still, when we look back on it, we smile and they say your goal at the end of the year for us every year is to be the last one standing and cutting down the nets. And we cut down nets in our last game and being the conference tournament champions. So that's something that we look back on pride with. But, we were just really fortunate to have a team that really gelled together from day one. I've had a lot of teams that have been really good, and there's ups and downs. Last year's team didn't ever have any downs, and that's not coach speak. I mean, it was every day. We were ready to work. There was no animosity on the team. They didn't care who the best players were, who was scoring the points, and we had guys that bought into their roles, and that's what allowed us to have 3 All-Americans, because you can't do that if guys are pulling against each other and they're not for each other. And, it was kind of established real early on that, Trey Knight and Kadavian Evans were our 2 best players, really. And then Gilbert Thomas was our post player that he brought some to the table that we didn't have. And his ability to score around the basket and lead the country in field goal percentage and block shots and run the floor is what really propelled him into a special season. And, as we progressed, we knew we had to find ways to get him the ball as well. And so, it was one of those years where, I think our first loss early in the year, we went up to Mid-America Christian, who ended up number 2 in the country. Mm-hmm. And we had a double-digit lead early in that game, but neither one of us at that time knew much about our own teams. And come to find out, by the end of the year, when we're both standing at 2 and 3, I wish we could have played each other later in the year because I know we both were playing better basketball, and it just would have been fun to see us match up with somebody like that. But in every game last year, we led by double digits at some point. Even the 2 conference games that we lost, we had 17-point leads, I think, in the second half, and then it just kind of the wheels fell off. But, you've got to have a special team that's able to build those leads. And we were beating people really bad, and people on their home floor. I mean, we beat, I think, Texarkana by 40 on their home floor, and they end up making the conference tournament championship game. The LSUA was a top 10 team, and we beat them by 30 in the final week of the season. And it's just everything was clicking for us. And it was a fun season to be a part of. I can't say enough about, how the guys really gave me everything that they had every day. And we were sad that it ended the way it did, but we're also, grateful for the opportunity that we had together and the success that we had.
Well, I'm going to take a wild guess that Coach Gamblin wanted that matchup as well. just a guess.
I think so. I mean, we talk. He's a good friend of mine, and they're supposed to come back and play us this year, and we hope that they're going to be able to make that trip. But he told me if he sees us again that he hoped it was in the championship game, and so we both would have signed up for that if we could have made that happen. But I mean, he's got such a tremendous program up there, and what he's been able to do by winning a national championship and having a contender nearly every year. It's pretty cool to build those relationships with coaches like that are outside of your league, and then really watch them and cheer them on and just enjoy the whole NAIA landscape and what NAIA basketball is.
Before we leave last year's team, you've got to say a couple words about a couple guys that are graduated now. So you got to start with Traquan Knight, unbelievable talent.
Yeah, Trey, we were very fortunate to get him to transfer here, and really, that credit goes to my former assistant coach, John Anthony Anglin, who's now a head junior college coach. He was with me in 18-19 for the whole year, and then all summer leading into last year. And he ended up getting a Division I job down at the University of New Orleans. But he had been a long-time Division I assistant coach and had a lot of connections on the recruiting trail, and had recruited Trey out of junior college. And Trey ended up going up to Detroit Mercy, and it didn't work out after a semester. And so he had called us in, I think, February. We had him signed up, like probably one of the earliest recruits I've ever signed. And so we had him in February, and then come summertime, he joined our program, and from day one, I don't know how he was everywhere else he had been, but he was a leader here. Every day he was one of the first ones in the gym. He was a leader in all of our drills, and he just proved it. We tell the guys that we recruit that we're not going to promise you anything, because we recruit a lot of Division I transfers and some guys that have been highly rated prospects out of high school and whatnot, and we won't promise them anything, but accept an opportunity that we're going to coach you the best we can. We're going to give you every chance to prove to us that you are the player that everybody has said you are in the past. Mm-hmm. And that's what Trey did. Trey came in here and proved that, he was a former junior college All-American, and he proved that, he has the ability to play at the professional level. And every single day he did it, and every game, he just was unbelievable night in and night out. We didn't know he could shoot it that well. And he just consistently did it every single day, and he's definitely somebody that we're going to miss, because he was the heart and soul of our team last year.
And then maybe you can say a couple words about Gilbert Thomas. You're going to miss him on the board. 16 points, 9 rebounds. He was honorable mention All-American.
Yeah, Gilbert, just high energy, infectious smile and personality, and a guy that just, like I said, he gave us something that we really I haven't had on very many teams here. And it was just athleticism and his ability to run the floor at his size. He could finish around the basket as well as anybody in the country. And he did what we asked him to do. And he didn't ever try to play outside of himself. A lot of times when you get some of those 6'7", 6'8" guys that have played at the Division I level, they all want to tell you they're a guard, and they won't really commit to going down and playing the post. And he did that. And I think that's what ultimately made him excel last season. And so, he's a guy that we're sorely going to miss. I mean, we are small this year. We're missing him, no doubt. I wish we had another Gilbert Thomas. Fortunately, we did recruit one that we think can replace him. But I would take Gilbert Thomas every single year that I coach if I could. And those two guys, they really put their stamp on LSUS basketball, and they'll always be remembered here in this program for what they did in their one season here at LSUS.
Well, that brings us up to this season. I know we're getting a little bit of a late start this year, but boy, you have a great nucleus to build from. Kadavian Evans, he was third-team All-American last year, 17 points, 5 rebounds. You also have a couple other starters back, Jeff Boyd out of Chicago and Kelvin Henry out of Lake Charles. They're both back as well. So you have a pretty good core going into this season, don't you, Coach?
Yeah, we're excited about those three. Kelvin Henry's played for me. This is his third year, so I mean he's going to be a 3-year starter. And he's had experience 2 years ago at the national tournament where we won a first-round game, and then we missed a shot right at the end to beat Georgetown, who was the national champions. And so he's a former Division I kid. His sister played here and was an All-American here, and that's kind of how we got him, especially young in his career. A lot of times we get these Division I transfers. It's late. It's at the back end. They're either 2 or 1 year guys. But we've been excited to have him around for now his third year. And Jeff Boyd came to us straight out of junior college, and this preseason, I mean, he looks like an All-American. He really finished last year, probably the last 10 or 15 games. He's what made us finish the season on a 14-game win streak. He's one of the best defenders in the country. We put him on everybody's best player, and you can go look at the stats. And if somebody was averaging 19 a game, if they got 19, they were going to have to do it on about 17 or 20 shots. He just took it a challenge night in and night out to go chase around the other team's best player. But he also stepped it up on the offensive end, and that's what we've seen through this preseason. Really him just taking his game to another level. He is 6'5", kind of approaching 6'6", and he hadn't been scared. He told me, because we played Trey Knight at the 4 spot, and our 4 spot is a kind of hybrid position, kind of guard forward spot. And after he saw what Trey did from that position last year, and Trey was 6'3", Jeff told me, "Hey, Coach, you got to give me some of that action this year." And we're going to. He's proved that he's got a chance to be one of the better players in the country, and we're excited about him. And then, our big bonus was getting a medical hardship for Kadavian Evans, who I think is one of the best, if not the best, point guards in the country. He can do it all, and he's just. I've never had anybody like him here, and that's saying a lot. He's just a different player. He's so smooth. He looks like a professional. He works like a professional. He's getting his master's degree. He's already 26 hours towards his master's degree. He's a kid that is never going to talk back, never disagree with me. He just goes out, and he's an extension of me on the floor. And when I told our team, the guys coming back, that KD got his year back, they were so excited and fired up. And that's what I'm talking about, the no animosity, because that could have been easy for a Kelvin Henry and a Jeff Boyd to go, well, dang, there's 17 points a game and a starter and another that, and, maybe I won't be able to get mine now. But they were so excited and happy for him and for our program. And that's a young man that I just can't say enough about, that, he's a once-in-a-lifetime kid that you get the opportunity to coach, and he's a Shreveport kid. I played against his dad in high school. I recruited KD all throughout high school, and then he went to the Division I level, and he was just, riddled with injuries his whole career. He only got to play one season at UL Lafayette, and he missed all of 3 seasons and came here as a graduate transfer, kind of under the radar last year. And so to have him back and have him as our leader and team captain is something that's hopefully going to carry this team into another successful season this year.
So, Coach, I want to ask you about the conference, but before I do, you mentioned family, and you and I had spoken just a couple minutes before we started. I told you one of the things, and everybody I think who follows me knows that the thing that draws me to NAI small college basketball is that family atmosphere. I've followed it for 50-plus years. I've known coaches, their families, parents, brothers, sisters, so many players that I still know. Can you talk about that? You've been around NC2A, Division I ball, and then small college ball. Is there a difference in that family atmosphere, or is this just something I imagine?
I think there is to some degree, and a lot of it I think has to do with, who's in charge of the program. And sometimes at the Division I level, some of those places are so big and there's so many people, you just don't get those personal relationships like you do at the small college level. When we went to the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row, I'm seeing some of the same Tulsa fans, but I'm not seeing people that go to the NCAA tournament for 50 consecutive years like I have at the NAI Division I national tournament, where every year when I walk in at 9 a.m. to the first game, fortunately we never had to play that one, but I'd always love to be there for the tip. And you walk through that center section there in Kansas City at the Municipal, and you see those familiar faces that were there when I played 15, 16 years ago, however many years it was. And that, I think that's what you're speaking of, because that's what you've experienced in your life, and being able to do those things. And that's what makes it so unique. And then the Champions of Character aspect that the NAI does, we've really bought into that here at LSUS. And for the last 4 years, we've hosted what we call our Champions of Character game, where I bus in 750 inner city kids here in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we bring them to our gym. And for 95% of them, it's the first college basketball game that they've ever seen in person. And we bring them in here, and we pack our gym out, and we give them the Champions of Character message. And it's always a highlight of my season to be able to do that. Unfortunately, this year with the coronavirus, we're not going to be able to pull it off, but it's something that I can't wait to do again, because to me, that's the family stuff you talk about, that we're able to make an impression on those kids, and they see that, it's not all big business. And then if you ever watch one of our games, and I talk about my family, If you watch just past the final buzzer, you're always going to see my two little daughters running out from the baseline and meeting me at center court and wrapping their arms around my neck and hugging me and kissing me. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. And fortunately, last year we won all of them at home, so there was a lot of celebrating. But I now have a son that's about to be 8 months old, and I'm looking forward to hopefully before this year's over, he's going to be running around and walking on that court and coming hugging my neck when the game's over. And that stuff's the most important thing to me, like we talked about. And I think that's what you see in our program. And you see that around the entire country at the NAIA level. It's just something that's really special. There's a lot of great men, a lot of great coaches. That's one of the things that I'm looking most forward to as merging with former Division II all into one division. Is just, getting to build some relationships with some of these coaches that I've never met before and never had the opportunity to sit down with because, I know there's some fine coaches all across the country and they all have a lot of stories like me and some of them have a lot more years than I do. And I just think that's really cool that we're able to do that here at the NAI.
So, Coach, that's a great segue. There's a lot of fans of this show that aren't familiar with the Red River Athletic Conference. Could you just take a couple minutes and, talk about it, talk about the basketball in the conference, what are the bus trips like, what's unique about the conference?
So the Red River is, Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas right now. The Red River is what splits Oklahoma and Texas, and we used to have some Oklahoma schools in our league, and they're now out. But our league, in terms of competitive nationally, we've been very successful over the last 5 to 10 years at the national tournament. Top to bottom, it's probably a top heavy league in terms of we have usually every year 3 to 5 teams that can go out and compete at a national tournament, and but that's not to say the teams at our bottom aren't competitive. There's some everybody night in night. You hear it's coach speak. There's no easy nights in our league, and we get to play in a lot of fun venues. There's a lot of historical black colleges and universities that are in our league. It's about half and half, and they take a lot of pride in packing their gyms out and showing up, and they'll have bands playing, and it's just some of them create an atmosphere that it's just so much fun to coach and play in. And then you have your natural rivalries with LSU Alexandria and us. They're just right down I-49. LSUA is, I would put them up. I don't know if anybody has won more games than they have over the last 5 years. I'm a national Raider, and so I had just done the stats. They've won 147 games in the last 5 years. It's an average of just under 30. And they've played in 2 Final Fours. They've been in a national championship game. LSUS, we've been in 2 Final Fours since I've been here. In 17-18, we had 4 teams go to the national tournament. 2 made the Final Four, 1 made the Elite Eight, and the other one lost in the Sweet 16 to the national champion. And in the year after, the last year that they had a national tournament, we had 4 teams go. LSUA made the Elite Eight. We lost to Georgetown by a point. Wiley won a first-round game and lost in the second round. And then St. Thomas out of Houston, who's now a Division III school, they lost to Carroll right at the end, and Carroll played in the national championship game. So I think we've been in the top 3 or 4 in terms of win percentage out at the national tournament of the Division I programs. And so it's a very competitive league, and our teams are always prepared for the national tournament when we get there. And we don't think this year will be any different. But you asked about bus trips. We've got 1 team out in New Mexico in our league, University of Southwest. That's in Hobbs, New Mexico. That's about an 8.5-hour bus ride for us.
You're kidding.
That's the furthest we go, but we get to make that trip once a year, and then we've got a team in San Antonio and Austin, which is about a 7-hour, 6.5, 7-hour trip. And then for the most part, we'll just hop on vans and go to the other games because they're within 3 hours, some an hour and a half, and Wiley and Marshall's only 45 minutes from us. So we have some fun road trips, and even though Hobbs is that 8.5-hour trip, it's still one that we enjoy making. It's always fun to pop some movies on the TV and play games and just kind of bond some more together and make that trip out there. And that's just part of the thing that one of the things I love the most about college basketball is just creating memories. And you do that on the road. And that's where the most of my memories have been made as a player and as a coach. And there's nothing like celebrating road wins in an opponent's locker room. And so, we have some fun road trips, but, to sum it all up, the Red River has been very competitive nationally. This year, LSUA and LSUS, I think we're picked to win the league. LSUA is right behind us.
Yep.
And then Texarkana is an up-and-coming team that has a coach. They were a first-year program last year, and he used to be at Our Lady of the Lake, and he's taken his teams to the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16. And I think every year he made the national tournament as a head coach, they've won at least a first-round game. So we're looking forward to seeing what the league holds again this year, and then more so, like I mentioned, I'm a national Raider, and I'm interested in learning a lot more about the Division II schools that have merged with us, because, like you said, some of your listeners may not be as familiar with the Red River Conference. I'm not with at least probably 60 or 70% of the D2 conferences. I know the names, I know the schools, I keep up with it as best as I can, but the in-depth things of the conference, I'm looking forward to learning more and learning, which ones compete at the national level, and just kind of building my knowledge on the whole national landscape now that we're one division.
Well, it's definitely from that perspective, it's definitely going to be an interesting year. Coach, I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you about your basketball philosophy. Just give fans an idea of what to expect from your teams. Let's start offensively. Do you like to play fast, deliberate, deep in the shot clock? Do you try to get back? Do you crash the offensive boards? What's your offensive philosophy?
We're always going to play fast. We're going to play up tempo. We've had a couple of years sprinkled in there where we've had to adjust, when we had some teams that couldn't score it as well as others. But I think last year we finished up at right around the top of the nation in scoring. We were about 97 points a game, and we've had a couple of seasons where we have been number one in the country in scoring. And so we're going to push the ball. We like to play in transition. We like to do a lot of stuff out of transition where we run the spots and we run plays out of that, whether we're calling it or guys just, play off of each other in transition. And everything we do, we've got a pretty broad playbook where we will call some set plays. But if we ever get slowed down in transition, we like to get into them quick. And we just talk about trying to be the most efficient we can be. And a lot of times when people think, you score a lot of points and you play up tempo, all they envision is just a rat race. That's just back and forth. And that's not really the way we try to play. We just want to be efficient and do it early in the clock. And I think you've seen my best teams have been able to do that, where we put the ball in the basket and we shoot it at a high percentage. We share the basketball well. We don't turn it over. We're fundamental. But we get, a lot of early offense. Our points per possession, I think last year in our net efficiency, we were up there in the top 1, 2, or 3 in the country. And we may give up a lot of points defensively. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a defensive coach. We do work on it. Last year was probably one of my best defensive teams. And, but offense is that's what I'm bookmarking on my Twitter when I'm going through it and I see half court hoops and I see something I like, and I've just got a whole bunch of plays in here that we like to implement. We like to try to do what we call quick hitters. I think everybody calls them that. We're not going to run motion offense. We're not really going to try to pass it 10 times before we take a shot. We want the best shot that we can get, and if we can get that 5 seconds into the shot clock, we'll take it. So we play a fun brand to watch offensively, and our guys enjoy it. We typically don't play a lot of guys. That's why you see guys on our team that have inflated statistical numbers, where you'll have a number of guys averaging 20 and 17 and 15 or whatever it may be. So, the guys enjoy playing it. We compare it to an NBA style system. We typically play small ball. We're not all threes and layups like the Houston Rockets. But our philosophy is if we're not going to shoot it on the perimeter, we want to attack the basket hard. And every year we want to try to lead the country in free throw attempts. And my best teams have done that. That we've just had the mentality of taking it strong to the basket and going and trying to finish and lead the country in attempts and makes. And I think both of my teams that we've had made runs at the national tournament have both been in the top 2 or 3 in the country in that area. And so offensive rebounding, you mentioned crashing it. That's a key statistic for us. Anytime you can get more shots than your opponent, you've got a better chance to score more than they do. And at the end of the game, that's what the scoreboard reads. Whoever has the most points wins. And so that's kind of the philosophy that we take, and we do. We'll crash 3 or 4 guys at a time and try to extend possessions and see if we can score more than our opponent that night.
So defensively, I know you want to play fast, but do you prefer man-to-man? Do you play a matchup zone? How do you usually set up?
We mix it up. Every year is different. 2 years ago, 18-19, that team couldn't guard their own shadow. And we were about a 500 ball club, and we had, in my opinion, one of the most talented teams in the country. And we had the National Player of the Year that year, Jeff Garrett. And we just couldn't put it together, and we were trying to teach them, how to play man defense the right way. And my assistant coach, he coached under Tim Floyd, who's notorious for guarding man-to-man, and so he was teaching them all the things that I didn't even know. I didn't know the lingo or anything. I'm like, I'm loving this. This is the way we're supposed to guard. And we just couldn't put it together. And about 13 games left in the season, we switched to a 2-3 zone, and we won 13 in a row. And I think we ended up losing our conference tournament championship game, and we just sat in a zone. And so I've had several teams throughout my career where we'll come out, we'll try to play man to start a season, and we'll full court press some. It just depends on the team, your personnel.
Yep.
I think that for me, when I recruit, I kind of can see if a guy guards a little bit, but I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at their offensive stuff, and when I pull up their synergy, I'm not watching them on the defensive end. That's just me. There's probably a lot of coaches that do, and there's a lot better coaches out there than I am. Maybe I need to learn to do that and become better. But defensively, we try to figure out when they get here what they can do, what their limitations are, what they're best at. It's not about me. And the same thing offensively. I can have my philosophy on both ends of the floor, but if our personnel doesn't have the ability to play to that, then I need to change something. And we need to figure out what works best for our team, because each year is unique, and they're all different. And so, last year we had the mindset of, we'll sprinkle in some zone, we'll mix it up, and we played man 98% of the time last year. I think early in the season we sprinkled in zone and didn't know what we were doing. And I remember key possession at MacU, I can see it in my head right now, where a guy was just lost in the zone, and they hit a big-time 3 at a crucial part in the game. And I'm sitting there going, well, why are we even playing zone? Because we hadn't really worked on it that much, but we didn't think man was working. And those are the seasons when things don't go the way that you want them to, when you can't figure out. If you can't play either, then you're going to be in big trouble. So, it's our job as coaches to mix it up and find whether it's a matchup or a 2-3 or a half-court trap or whatever it is, or just pressure man or soft man, you name it. We're going to try to figure out, what we can do to win the most ball games.
So, Coach, just to kind of wrap up, what is it going to take for LSU Shreveport to, have a good season? What are the keys for your program this year?
Well, we've got a lot of tradition and history here, and there's a culture of winning. And fortunately, we've got there's 6 guys that were part of that team last year that are all back, including those 3 starters that we touched on. And so, the mentality and the mindset of what it takes to be a champion is in our gym every single day. And when you mix that with the newcomers that we've brought in, and we've brought in a couple of Division I transfers that are really talented. We got an NCAA Division II transfer that averaged 17 points a game. He can really score it. And then we picked up a transfer from Texas Wesleyan that was first-team All-Sooner and honorable mention All-American in the NAI. He's our big guy. And he'll have to sit first semester and hopefully be eligible by second. If not, well, then we'll have him for the following year. But, mixing that group with what we've got, I think the pieces are there to have another really good season and to compete for a conference championship and hopefully make our 17th consecutive NAI national tournament. I think that's all right in front of us, and I think we've got the guys that understand what it takes. And I think we've got guys that are hungry because of what was taken from them last year, and them not having the opportunity to go out and try to win a national championship with a team that we thought had a really good shot at it. So, our mindset, we're in the right place there. I think the biggest thing is, just like everybody, is we've got to stay healthy, not only from a physical standpoint, but, from trying to do our best to not have our season shut down for couple of weeks at a time because of the virus.
Right.
And so, it's important for us to do what we're doing every day and taking the right health and safety protocols that we need to do on and off the floor to try to get this season in. And I think that's going to be a challenge for a lot of people. You already see it across the country at the, NFL level, and baseball dealt with it early in their season when they restarted. And then college football, there's just been a lot of games being postponed, and basketball is not a one game a week. It's multiple games per week. Our conference schedule has been pushed back to a January start. There's a 5-week period where we play 15 games. If one of our guys contracts a virus, we're going to essentially shut down 6 games at minimum. And so, sometimes you just got to be lucky with that stuff. It's the same thing as just a guy getting injured. A kid we were counting on this year that's 6'6" and was going to be a key piece for us this year. He ruptured his Achilles 2 weeks ago, and he's out for the year. Stuff like that happens. You hate it, and you would never wish it on anybody, but you learn to deal with it. And in these times, with the coronavirus, that's what everybody's just having to try to figure out. You're having to try to plan for the best. And when something happens, you make your adjustments and you carry on and you do the best you can. And that's what we talk to our guys all about all the time, is just always doing your best, no matter what. Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't worry about the person next to you. Just do your best. And that's what I've kind of philosophy I've lived by my whole life. I've heard that from my grandfather, who I mentioned was a Hall of Fame coach, that he always used to say Blankenships always do their best. And they never, ever, ever quit. And that's what LSUS is going to do. We're going to do our best every single day, and we're never going to quit. No matter what the circumstance, no matter what the situation, we're going to put our pants on. We're going to go to work every single day.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you being on, talking about your team, talking about the conference. I'm hoping once the season starts, we can get you back on a time or two. I would really appreciate that. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, anytime I can talk basketball and learn a little bit more from people on the other side of the country, man. It's great for me, and looking forward to following the whole entire NAIA this year and following you and your podcast and listening to other coaches talk about their teams throughout the season. It's pretty cool what you're doing, and I know this guy sitting in this chair really appreciates everything that you do for NAIA basketball.
Oh, that means you don't know what that means to me. Thank you very much, Coach. Well, thank you, Coach, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Bill.